Hi there. This is Laquita Thompson, the owner of Extreme Heat Sports Management. And this week on the I Am podcast, we're doing something different. We have a special guest who will be sharing historical moments in sports. That's right. We're going back in history, sports history, and you don't want to miss it. Tune in each week to hear great moments of athletes that we've heard of right here on the I Am podcast with a very special guest, a celebrity right out of the city of Houston, Texas. Enjoy.
I am legendary.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and people all over the globe, thanks for tuning in to today's special edition of the I Am podcast. Today's guest is nothing less than a legend. He's a triple threat, a superstar activist, an award-winning journalist, and a sportscaster like none this town has ever seen. Ladies and gentlemen, if you were to list the 50 most influential athletes of the past 50 years, today's guest will have interviewed just about all of them. Hailing from the University of Houston by way of the Ebony Worthing Coats, the Hall of Famer, Ralph Cooper!
I know over the past year, we've seen so much now because of social media, and a lot of our younger people who just really haven't paid attention to history because of social media have seen so much. What would be your advice for some of your millennials who are trying to break into broadcasting or just trying to break into any industry right now and having to deal with, to them, maybe a new America to them? Because I think some of them now realize, okay, this is the world that you live in. How do you deal with, inequality, no equity and all these things that we are now talking more about today? What advice would you leave for them who are trying to break into any industry?
My theory was always to try to outwork the other person, no matter who they are. But see, the other thing in regards to the racism thing, the part that I did share with you is I worked at the Four Times, the Informer, the Defender, and then I worked at black radio stations, and then I got with Bob Allen at Channel 13 and did a program on Channel 13 called Extra Points and Tell It Like It Is for about 20 years. And I still remain black or loyal to my community. I had a chance to be like a stringer for Jet Magazine and Muhammad Speaks. And those two, Muhammad Speaks especially, was very important because both were important because they gave you a chance to get stuff in on a national level with your name on it. They gave you bylines. So as a result, everybody knows about Fred Hampton in New York, The Messiah and Judas, the new movie that's out right now. Mm-hmm. A few of them know about Carl Hampton, who was here in Houston, who was a musician. And in his travels as a young musician, he went to Oakland and he was impressed with the Black Panther Party. And he came back and started People's Party 2 here in Houston. And he was murdered here in Houston in the early 70s, at 21 years old. And I had a chance to I interviewed all those kind of people. I interviewed people like him also. Mm. And they knew that I would come around and I would take photos and I would write stories. And I ended up meeting him thanks to a classmate from Worthing. She was his friend, and as a result of she being his friend and being a classmate, I was able to get a one-on-one interview with him, and found out what had motivated him to become who he was. It was like he knew he was going to be assassinated. He knew he was going to be killed because he was standing up for something at a time when people didn't understand it, and that's the message I want to get over to the younger people. Just because you don't understand something doesn't mean you shouldn't take time to try to understand it. And that's what happened in the case with Carl Hampton and myself. I learned to understand what he was about and what the Black Panther Party was about, just like I did at an early age in learning what the Nation of Islam was about. At 15 years old, when your parents don't want you, you've been raised to be a Christian, then all of a sudden you want to go to the mosque to hear the Nation of Islam. But the reason was you were inquisitive. You wanted to know the other side, not that maybe you were going to put down what you had been all your life, but you just wanted to know the other side and how it could enhance you if it could. So that's my advice to the younger people. With these, I don't know how. I appreciate all the accolades. But see, being one who only worked with a tape recorder and a pencil and a camera, and a piece of paper, I couldn't imagine what you all have, having what you all have here now, and a bunch of energy, unlimited energy. I can't imagine what I would be doing now in regards to doing these things you all do. Y'all do the podcast. You can do documentaries through these devices. You can do anything you want to. And my thing is to encourage the younger ones, the ones coming up now. Again, just like I had the courage not to be intimidated by I'm talking about some bad men. If I had the courage to go up to these men and do what I did, you should be able to do even greater things now. Don't be afraid to call out LeBron James. I'm talking about even individuals that are coming up that may not be as well known. Try to know those individuals on the way up instead of waiting until they get up there to know them. I went to Africa for 9 weeks. My black behind never would have been nowhere near Africa if it hadn't been for Muhammad Ali, 3 black men now. Well, 4 really. Mobutu, who's the dictator over in Zaire, now the Republic of the Congo, who agreed to pay the money for the fight. Black. Don King, the promoter, who had the balls to ask George Foreman and Ali to let him promote the fight, and then went and got the money from Mobutu and then George Foreman and Ali. I never would have been nowhere in there. And then I run into, to show you how things are, months before the fight, the fighters have signed. I've interviewed George Foreman. We're kind of friends then. Not as well as we would become. So I run into him. This is why I say you never know how destiny is going to play. So I was invited to this party. So I go to this party, and George said, "You coming to the fight?" And I, you just respond, "I would like to." He said, "You coming to the fight," which meant that he had. So sure, he said, "I'll get the travel agency to get in touch with you in a few days." So sure enough, in a few days, the travel agency called, and all the arrangements were made for me to go to the fight. All I had to do was take a yellow fever shot, which was everybody screaming about these COVID shots. That yellow fever shot knocked me down. They told me, they said in 5 or 6 hours after this shot, you need to be at home because you want to be able to lift your arm. Mm-hmm. Sure enough, the pain came in, and it was around for about a day. But again, you have to take advantage of your opportunities. Mm-hmm. You go to Zaire, and $74 a month is the average income. You learn what poverty is all about. You've heard all these different rumors about the African people not liking you. And now you're fighting to keep these Africans out of your room. They want to be around you. They find out that you're single. They bring you them aunts, sisters. It got to the point, hey man, you are where I'm from, don't invite them. You'll come in and play dominoes, drink beer, whatever. I don't need you for that. You know what I'm talking about? Mm-hmm. But you go to the schools. You get them to let you go to the schools, and now you find out they think you have a ranch. You're from Texas. This is what they knew. You're a cowboy. You got a ranch, horses. No. Then, one other thing, this is why some people like me are passionate about the Astrodome. Mm-hmm. Now, here we are all the way in Zaire, 10,000 plus miles away in the heart of Africa. They knew about the Astrodome. Mm-hmm. Wanted to know how could it be air conditioned? How could a building, then you tell them it's bigger than your stadium where the fight was going to be. It's bigger than that. But they say it's air conditioned, it's covered in it, but they find that it was just impossible for them to imagine that thing was here. And so that, and it makes you proud of being from Houston and all that kind of stuff. So those are some of the things. Just don't be afraid to be able to take the chances. And you can still do what you want to do. I could have left Houston several times. Mm-hmm. Several times I could have left Houston. But then I thought about it. One thing that was important to me until 2 years ago or whatever, my mother listened to every show that I ever did. TV or radio around here. My mother had a chance to listen to every one of them every day.
Wow.
So one of the things that I missed was the calls from my mother. She would miss, so that's what that was the $1 billion. The fact that your mother could hear you every day while you were on the radio or television, she could watch. Which was a blessing. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So and then again, never think that you're not auditioning. Bob Allen, who was the sports director at Channel 13, came up and approached me about doing a TV show with him at a high school game. It goes in one area and you kind of, I'll be available. So sure enough, he kept calling and then the program, first time we did the program, it was in an area like this, where we are now doing this. We do the program and it airs on TV. The next week I pull up at this restaurant in Houston. I pull up and I said, damn, somebody must be having a hell of a party here. Not thinking that these people are there because of the television show. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. And so you never know where your bump is going to come from in regards to what you want to do. I never wanted to be like an anchor. I wanted to be like an analyst, a guy who gave his opinion, a guy who hosted a show. That everything basically that I have is what I wanted. Mm. I didn't want on no newspaper. Mm-hmm. I didn't want on a radio station. Mm. What I wanted to do is basically maybe I've been selfish. I just wanted to do the things that I wanted to do and help people through those vehicles. Yeah,
that's something I really appreciate about you is your decision to stay here in Houston and just instill into the community as you have on every level, not just news, not just writing, but broadcasting, not just professional sports, not just celebrities, but also high school. And it's changed a lot. We know it's changed a lot. Recruiting has just come and just has really taken away from our inner city schools. And I just want to end with that for that younger athletic pool that we say sometimes get left out. I guess, how do you feel about that? And is there anything that we can do that can help our kids still reach those same scholarship opportunities today?
We've got more now. Because in my opinion, you have more ways. Apply. We applied by mail back in the day. Now you can get on this computer device, and in a matter of minutes, in 1 hour, you can have 50 different applications going all over the place, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. Don't be afraid to ask the people. Don't just apply for loans. My theory is start with grants and scholarships. Apply for grants and scholarships, and don't be afraid to reach for the places that you think may be impossible to you. But also in the same vein, in my opinion, also always have places that are near you, where if something happens and you can't afford to go to, say, USC, or you can't afford to go to Grambling, or you can't afford to go over to Morehouse, you've got Texas A&M, you've got Prairie View, you've got Texas Southern, you've got all of these, University of Houston, all these schools right here in this area. You want to go out a little bit further, you got Texas Tech, Texas A&M, you got all these schools, SMU, TCU, Houston, Tillerson, Langston. You got all these places that you can apply for, and you're going to be accepted. And the other thing to do is try to learn. This is the biggest advantage that I had and people who came along in my time and some short after that we had. Our education came solely from black people. The only time we saw white people on our campus was if they came to speak or to visit the principal or something. Otherwise, you were being taught daily by black men and women. And you also were taught, you had to learn a skill. Mm-hmm. You had welding, you had air conditioning, you had all that, you had auto mechanics, and carpentry, and all you had, but you had to take, it was like a foreign language. You had to take one of those courses. And then they'll go back to the foreign language. Don't be intimidated. Don't say to the younger people. When I came along, I took Spanish. We had French and we had even Russian at our school. And Latin, I think. Could have taken them. I took Spanish. Why? Because of Mexico. I said to myself, my thinking was, I'll be able to get to Mexico. My thinking was never about Europe. When I got, like I told you, I went to that fight. Mm-hmm. When I got to Europe, I flew through Paris and I went through Rome and Madrid, Spain. And then I got to Africa. The main language was French. And I thought about all those days I could have been at Worthing High School, learning how to speak French. And I wouldn't have had to depend upon a guy who became a friend, who worked for the Reuters News Service when we was on the airplane going from Madrid to Africa. He asked, "Are you going to the fight, to cover the fight?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "I would like to, I'd just like to hang with you." He said it another way, when we get to Africa. And I said, "Why would you like?" He said, "You're well liked over there. The females like guys who look like you." Now, this was a white man, a Frenchman telling me that. Yeah. And then I said, "Well, why would I get you?" So he said, "Because do you speak French?" I said, "No." He said, "You speak Swahili?" I said, "No." He said, "I speak them all."
There you go.
And him and I became real good. He knew all the languages. And he and I became real good friends. And he was telling the truth. And like I told you earlier, don't believe some of the hype in regards to some of the Africans not liking us or whatever. You have some come here because they come here. Everybody's not going to be the same. But it was many who, I wasn't a king in Africa, but you're looking at a prince. I was a prince, and for 9 weeks I was a prince. So get as much education as you can. Go to school, learn from the professors, and learn how to master these skills. Some of the stuff you can do on your own. Your parents have had you on these phones since you were 2, 3, 4 years old. Learn how to make documentaries. Learn how to do podcasts, etc. on these devices. You'll be all right.
Thanks for tuning in to this special edition of the I Am Podcast, brought to you by Extreme Heat Sports and Fat Bars Records and Multimedia. We'll be back again next week with more of this must-hear interview. Until then, be well.